we have such an important opportunity, and David Owens, as the convocation, has many years in this ministry. He cares deeply about it, comes from the Atkins family. He knows something about what we experience, and he knows that we have a passion to foster healthy relationships, healthy marriages in our society. He's got something very special to offer. But let's just welcome him back, and he's going to kick these off here in a second. How about a round of applause?
Good morning. Blessed wives and our Reverend Deacons, good morning to you. It is a pleasure to be back with you. How many were not here in January when I presented? First time. Very good. Thank you. So what I was going to do today, what I will do today, I hope, is build on what I shared, but also obviously a bit of a recap on where we are with our marriage work. We have information, data, globally, state, here in Orange, as well as the particular updates on the initiatives since the last time we spoke with you. So I can speak more boldly than even January when I spoke last time, but also with a very particular ask, a very particular invitation for some pretty bold marriage work in the area. I was blessed to this time bring my associate, my colleague, Jared Smythe, who will come up in just a moment to share part of some of the data in the presentation, but he and I have been literally traveling the country, sharing some of this good news, bad news, and good news when it comes to marriage. But just yesterday, an article came out that it should be on your radar, so make sure before you go, get you the link to it. There is an article that edifies, builds up what's happening in Orange regarding marriage rates in a very contradictory way than the rest of the state. So there's some good things here to build on when it comes to what's truly happening within marriage today. Just by beginning presentation, my name is Damon Owens, and I'm here today for Communio Foundation. And we're a foundation that is focused, a nonprofit, in helping our parishes to have world-class marriage ministry. That's probably the easiest way to get to it. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means to you, what we're doing that is unlike anything that you've seen before. It is not for every parish because of the intensity, but when you see the results of what we do, I'm hoping that there is a good first cohort of deacons and parishes that will be part of what we're building here in the Diocese of Orange that's underway thanks to the bishops and thanks to the California Catholic Conference. So let's begin. Let's begin with my family. You know, we see like priests always come from real families. Deacons come from real families. This is my beloved family. My wife Melanie and I have married for 32 years. And we have, as you see from the picture, 8 children, all boys except the first 7. Just make sure everybody's still awake. A house full of girls. And my beloved Nathan, who's 14, our Olivia and Nathan, our 2 youngest, came to us through adoption. And Nathan and I are blessed among women. So we are holding that down. But marriage is very personal for this reason. It's not this extra job that I do or ministry. Melanie and I are involved in the programming side and the ministry, whether it's marriage preparation, marriage enrichment, natural family planning for our entire marriage. And I say that not as chops as much as just my lens for this is deeply personal. It's not just a new shiny new program. It's not just even a cultural need. There's something that always goes back and forth, and I think you'll understand as deacons and wives. There's something about our state of life that can't just be stuck in a silo. It moves back and forth, and it grows and builds on the other. That's how I approach this, and that's the spirit of it. And you know what's the beautiful thing about grandbabies? So these are 3 of my grandbabies. We have 2 more coming this year. Come on. One of the daughters is due in July, the other one is due in January, which she just announced, so we are continuing to do what we're supposed to do for Kingdom. But we need to get in the right mindset. The right mindset. When we talk about marriage, we need to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We need to talk about the global, the supernatural, the sacramental, the local, and the personal. We need to have the ability to talk about all of these things and be fluent to recognize that what we experience personally what we experience at the parish level is part of the diocese, it's part of the city, it's part of a region, it's part of the state, it's part of the nation, it's part of the time of God's age. And marriage from the beginning has been the place where God chose to form every human person. Everything. That marriage existed before the church. Marriage existed before government. This is not a civic program, it's not a social program. It is a place where all the logies come together. The theology, the sociology, the psychology, anything that you could study the meaning of, God saw sufficient that marriage and the family was the place where we come to belong and to belong irreplaceably to each other and to God. And it was sin, and on this side of sin, that singular primordial sacrament, just like the world and relationships, we have the grace of the 7 sacraments that flow from that. But it was, you see it, we talked about in the final battle on this side of sin, and the final battle between the Lord and the kingdom of Satan will be about marriage and family. This is where we're heading. I'm not talking about another program today. I'm not coming to you talking about one among many important things, because there are many important things going on. And yet there is a sacred order. There is a hierarchy. And if God sought marriage to be the beginning of that hierarchy in the beginning, how much more now? And we'll talk specifically about why we need to be particularly focused on this. But I want to ask you, we're in the field together. You as our reverend deacons and wives, you're in the parish, you're in ministry. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a real question, how does your parish currently minister to couples and families? Open forward. Currently, what's the snapshot of what it is? Yes? Baptism prep in terms of engaging families in sacramental preparation. Good. Marriage preparation, obviously, right? So couples come to us, right, for the sacrament, and we guide them through whatever the process and the steps are. How else do you serve marriages and families at the parish level right now? Marriage ministry. Can you go into detail?
Yeah, so we actually just started this at Santa Clara Diocese earlier this year. So we did a big kickoff, did it like a reception, wedding reception type of thing, and now we're doing programming that each of the different couples that are on the court team are leading discussions on what we're actually going through in life,
Okay.
and how to live as a faithful Catholic family in society today.
So more witness-based teaching. So it's mentioned that at the parish level, they have a kickoff, big event where more marriage enrichment than marriage preparation, but inviting people to church together, right? To journey together on marriage. Beautiful. What else? Sorry, yes. Pastoral.
Yeah, when they want to come individually.
So they come for, we gotta find a word for it, but yes, the pastoral approach, like how do I do this? Here's my situation with that. Yes, thank you.
You know, I think it's really important to be visible as a deacon couple, as a married couple. And within our parish, we have marriage enrichment programs. We're launching a marriage course, actually a 7-night series.
That's the way it goes.
We're gonna have a worldwide marriage encounter event at our parish.
Legendary.
So those types of things, but also I think to be visible as a deacon couple is very important, because then other couples come up, not only ask about the programs, but ask about, as musicians are married, how and what are the resources. Very important.
Very good. So the visibility, the deacon and the wife,
Right.
along with the programming and the pastoral, is that currently available at your parish? That's terrific.
Somehow I'd say that rate, diocese, the church, is somewhere maybe the 4 or 5.
Like 4 or 5 is your rate?
And I say that because too often I hear from even friends of mine with their children don't get married in the church. Many of them aren't baptized, maybe they aren't confirmed. We're just seeing this as a trend, so certainly God inspiring, especially for some sacraments, like we need to. Somehow.
So he's saying rate.
That's the right way.
Got it. 3 and a 4 because we're not able to inspire that next generation.
Well, and the data shows us that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go through it, you're absolutely right, yeah. There's also numbers, from 1 to 10, how would you rate your parish now? Everybody's gonna record these numbers.
5.
5?
2.
2? 5? It's all subjective, just what's your sense about your ability to serve couples now on a scale of 1 to 10? 3? Nobody else wants to play? 3? Are you hearing your number already? Okay. Yeah. Well, building on that, we talked about some of the why. Oops. There we go. That number that you have for the now, what would a 10 actually look like? This is one of those worst case, best case brain things where you think about what would a 10 look like? You dream about what the parish can be in terms of building healthy relationships, encouraging, just brainstorming. It's a 10. Yes?
Continued mentorship after the wedding.
Continued mentorship after the wedding. Yes, yes. What else?
And when marriage work starts, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Married couple social event.
Married couple social events. Good.
Retreats. I was gonna say marriage prep should start, you should start, catechism. It should be part of growing, it should be part of the life of the child, okay, into formation and eventual consideration of the sacrament of marriage.
So marriage.
So, pre-marriage prep, it starts when, you're 2 or 3 years old. When you just say mom and dad.
Great marriage prep. So earlier
Yeah.
engagement and connection instead of just at the 6 months. I heard something over here.
Couple retreats.
Couple retreats, oh, crucial, that time away, setting that time aside. You can say something earlier?
Oh, no, I was gonna say about, the community and rich program.
Yes.
Similar to casino movement,
You,
basically for marriage and after the retreat, the family gather together and not just couple.
yes, families get together. So some kind of program in the Indian community that includes, not just the couple themselves, but the families getting together. And I've seen that's something that you try to continue afterwards.
I think we'll be June, so.
This is your, okay, we'll find out.
They gather, they gather,
Yeah.
program, everything. There's community gathering consistently with their couples and families, varies.
Crucial. So in a 10, we're talking about marriage not being isolated, not being privatized, but now having some public dimension. Can I say that? Where your journey together, good times, bad, sickness, health, but there's community as well. Yes.
Marriage prep should begin at the earliest of ages, especially even in confirmation, where you should identify and talk to the kids and say, when you're looking for a spouse or someone to date, is faith one of the elements that you might look at, not just their job, how intelligent, but faith-driven.
Yeah, terrific. So again, for that sense of bringing marriage preparation in some form earlier as part of the life of parishioners and also life of the parish. The church, you're very familiar with, speaks about the 3 general stages of marriage preparation, right? The remote, the proximate, and immediate. And we invest heavily in the immediate, that you found someone, you're preparing for your particular marriage, and you approach the church to help in that sacramental preparation. Just before that gets to what you're talking about in terms of proximate, which is I am marriageable, either based on age or based on the fact that I'm dating or the fact that I'm available for marriage. And there's a level of formation, there's a level of human maturity that's necessary for me to even be marriageable. And then to your point, Deacon, about the remote, The church literally speaks about remote marriage preparation as living in a family with a married mom and dad. And I want to hold that space there, because as my colleague Jared will walk through some of the data, what happens to remote marriage preparation in the reality of not living in a home with a resident father? First, what happens to the culture? What happens to the role of the church? And then what do we do as church in terms of our responsibility to move that? I also wanted to throw in here, I loved the presentation, because I really did. How then, as deacons, now this is more of a forward thought, as you think through and watch some of the further presentation, looking at it through the eyes and the lens of your vocation, of how might that animation and purification that you Tom talked about, how is that posture to relate now coming to bear, or can come to bear, in the realities of decline of marriage and families, and of making our parishes those tents of building community? What's the particular role of you as husband and wife, as deacons, to use? And again, throwing some of what we just heard here, I am fascinated. Even Tom, we had this conversation last year, and we're still having it, with the restored diaconate order, permanent diaconate. It's more than 50 years in at this point, which is like a finger snap in church time. The restoration of the permanent diaconate. Look for those signs about how the Lord works. And when you see some of the data that we're going to share about the absolute collapse in marriage since 1970, I wonder aloud and privately what the Lord may be doing with the restoration of the permanent diaconate for such a time as this. For you and your wives in terms of the witness, you and your wives in terms of being present and to be able to be part of the need that has now come about at the same time. Can't ignore the timing of the Lord. I'm going to ask my partner Jared to come up and share a little bit here. He's been here for a while as a big monkey monk from Focus. He's familiar with the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. He ran about 50 campuses. It was California here was one of his big regions with many colleges and work here. So it's been a pleasure working with him. He's going to share a little bit more about what we do at Communio, particularly for the area here.
Great, thanks, Damon. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking the time. Well, great. Well, I want to introduce my family here. Have 5 little kids, all 9 and under, all girls, except we did have Void finally. So the joke, we live in Colorado now. There's this river in Boulder where 90% of the fish have turned female because there's so much birth control in the water. So that was the problem, is what I like to say. But anyway, beautiful family here. We have one representative from the family, the beautiful, talented, growing holiness, Eliza Marie Smythe, right over there. Eliza, little daddy daughter trip here in California. And then my wife is from Homa Thibodeau. Has anyone ever heard of this? Homa Thibodeau? It's a diocese that is 45 minutes southwest of New Orleans, which is kind of more of a Yankee. I always thought that was the ocean, right? But apparently that's a real place there. It's kind of the last bastion of land before you get your shrimping and crabbing communities. And so Mallory and I met each other, work with the College of Catholic University students, love my time there. So much beautiful ministry was happening, and helped run some campuses here in Fullerton and Irvine. And I always tell people that, look, if it was up to me in certain ways, I would still prefer to be on Harvard's campus at a bar doing direct evangelization, or being at Berkeley in a fun coffee shop, right, reaching out to those students. It's a very privileged time to share the faith. But the reality is, most college students don't strongly enter college and then lose the faith there. Okay? College doesn't help. Something more fundamental has happened to those students before they get there. The CARE data suggests that it's actually at 13 when people make a decision to leave the faith. That's the average age. And if we had, kind of a problem, right, phrase that we were talking about, I mean, this, the family crisis has turned into a faith crisis, and the church has struggled to address that, okay? There's a book that came out in 2017 called How the West Really Lost God by theologian Mary Eberstadt over on the East Coast. She's probably most famous for the book Adam, Eve, After the Code. And she said, look, there's a lot of reasons that people say there's less participation in the faith now. There's post-World War II atheism, there's science and technology, some people say feminism, urbanization, whatever it happens to be. All these things have their place. But she says, the only thing I see consistently is that the rate of family decline starts, and then the rate of faith participation follows. A lot of people think if you stop going to church, then you're going to stop getting married. What she says actually the opposite close to be true. But at the very least, these things are super connected. When we talk about a decline in marriage rates, what are we talking about? Well, there's been a 31% collapse since the year 2000, which is crazy. All right, not as crazy as the 61% collapse since 1970. When we talk about what some people call a nuclear family, mom, dad, and some kids, 40% of all households look like that. Just about 50 years ago. The last several years, that rate has been under 18%. Okay, this is we're living in a totally new place in a lot of ways. There are certain things culturally in the Catholic world, but even in the broader culture that supported marriage and family life, that don't support it anymore. And the church is still trying to figure out how do we address what in many ways, as David said, is kind of a new problem. I just noted that sometimes we talk about a priest vocation crisis in different places of the church because we've had 38% less guys ordained since 1970, which is a lot because there's more Catholics now than there used to be. However, in that same amount of time, there's been 75% Catholic sacramental weddings. Last year in the Carat data, almost 100% of incoming seminarians came from intact married families. Okay, so all this stuff is deeply tied together. One of the first things we do when we work with the parish is we ask people to self-identify relationship health needs. These are people who are answering who are generally at least in the pews every Sunday, because they're taking a survey, right, or at least they're physically at some point. And on average, we see at least 1 in 5 marriages in the pews on Sunday self-identify relationship and need. Higher for the women than for the men, which I know all the men here are very surprised about. As it turns out, the guys aren't always quite as quick on the uptake as the women are, but we see some real need, even just amongst those who are the most involved in our churches. When I started working Focus in 2006, when it was small enough that my parents were wondering if I was joining a cult, it was like dating and fundraising. What are you doing? And I loved it. I was mainly reaching out to the millennial generation. Okay, even though now us millennials are getting a little gray, unfortunately. And millennials self-identify as being the highest rate of religious nuns, if you've heard that term before, religiously unaffiliated. Okay, people who just kind of say they don't care very much about the faith. Highest rate of self-identification in any group in the history of the United States. But working with Professor Mark Regnerus, who does some great work on marriage at UT Austin, did some data work with him, and he said, look, if we just hold for one thing, we just know whether or not they come from a continuously intact married family. We know that essentially they go to church at basically the same rate as the previous 2 generations. If you're a 28-year-old male and a 58-year-old male, you go to church at the exact same rates if you're from a married mom and dad. The reality is less than half of people under 35 right now are from this kind of situation. And in fact, in our surveys, when we look across the people who answer, this is from our last 20,000 surveys, so we answer these in the pews. Well over 80% of people, right, who are taking that survey, again, come from continuously intact married families. That does not look like the surrounding neighborhoods, which suggests 2 things. Number one, as a church, we need to do a better job of reaching out to those who are from those situations. And number 2, it just reaffirms how important, right, the love of the family is when you're talking about the love of the Father. And there's lots of different ways you can talk about this in terms of the data. Most kids now are going to get 17 with a married mom and dad in the home. That's the normative state of things in the United States. It's not a unique kind of thing. Sometimes certain academics would say that really if the marriage rates were similar to what they were in 1970, our churches would be that much more full. And we can talk about this in lots of different ways, right? We can talk about this in terms of the collapse of resident fatherhood and what not having a strong male figure has done in our families. Right now, we're running a test with Catholic Charities in St. Louis as a true pilot because there's nothing that predicts negative outcomes in poverty for children the way that coming from or not coming from a married mom and dad does. So just one statistic here, if you're born into the bottom 20% of income earners to a never married mother, 74% of people stay, okay, in those bottom 2 quintiles of income earners their whole lives. If you're born into the bottom 20% to a married mom and dad, you're actually more likely to end up in the wealthiest income level or any other income level as opposed to the bottom. Okay, there's nothing that helps out kids in all these measures the way that a stable family does. And David and I, in community, we talk a lot about marriage and healthy relationships, but the reality is there's just a poverty of relationships in general. When it comes to singles, when it comes to people have half the friends that they used to have even just 10 years ago. Okay, you might remember from 2014 to 2017, the first time basically since World War II, that the average life expectancy went down in the United States, mainly due to what people call deaths of despair, drug overdoses, suicides. One in 4 young adults seriously contemplated suicide, in COVID time, all these things. Look, it turns out social media hasn't helped with relationships very well. Okay, COVID hasn't helped very well, but certainly the breakdown of marriage and family has had disastrous consequences. What we see is that the loneliest group of people, self-identified, is single 30-year-olds. Even lonelier than the loneliest widows. Okay, there's something about that generation that's starting to have some very detrimental effects. And so we can talk for a long time about the sociological realities of this, right? There's whole academic disciplines, but the reason that we're here, of course, is because of our faith. Right? Scripture starts with a family, it ends with the wedding feast of the Lamb in the book of Revelation. It's hard to understand salvation history, that we don't understand the nuptial way that God relates to his people. Even John Paul II, right? Parents are the first heralds of the gospel. I have family members, you all probably have some parishes that have a good school, that have a good youth group, and I have family members who are like, you know what, I'm just going to drop my kids off there, and that school will help them stay Catholic. Okay, you all know that even if you have the best school and the best youth ministry, if the parents aren't engaged, it's very difficult, right, to have a real impact on these kids. And we've always had a mature faith. We've always seen the faith as being an adult on down type of transmission. In the church, in a normal way, okay, this is just general Christian churches in the United States. Conservatively, we probably spend $6 billion a year on youth and young adult ministry, which is awesome, right? I get focused stuff. I've seen beautiful things happen. I know that like a lot of great conversions are taking place there. But one of the reasons we point this out is because 82% of parishes in the United States say they don't spend anything when it comes to marriage and healthy relationship ministry. And until we start to normalize that a little bit more, all these other ministries that we try to do down the line, okay, are going to limp if the family is not a source of strength. And so how do we change the way that we strategically focus on this in a time, right, where there's some new problems, the new problems that the church is facing? So, okay, then if we had, if you were to just explain in a little sentence, we'd say this, right, that we're equipping the church to evangelize through the renewal of healthy relationships, marriage, and the family. To evangelize through the renewal of healthy relationships, marriage, and the family. Just point out one thing. When we talk about the collapse of families of fire, what's the first thing you see when you see a house on fire? Smoke. You see smoke, okay? And a lot of times we talk about and put resources into fixing the smoke, which in this analogy is the kids leaving the faith. But if you just do smoke fighting, you never get to the core of the problem, you're never going to fix it. And the core of the problem is the breakdown of the family. So the question then is, a ministry like this, how does it work? David, I'd love you to answer that. Maybe this is just all theory.
Thank you, Jared. We don't end in dead notes, but Communion Foundation was founded specifically to not just deeply understand the problems we just shared with you, but also to use that knowledge to develop solutions. With the sense that the solutions ought to be at every willing parish. Not down the street, not at the community center, but that the parish can be the place of relational health, skills, community, theology, sacramentality. This is where you go if you want a healthy marriage and family. That's the vision that we share with you. So this was trial in the real world. In 2015, the first big trial was in 3 major cities around the United States. The one that gave probably the most data for us was Jacksonville, Florida, or Duval County down there, rated at the time as the 6th worst city for marriage in the United States. High divorce rates, low marriage rates, right, all the time. So you can really break it. The 3-city study using the community model was focused on inviting churches to be places where skill-based marriage work and programming can be offered, and getting the right people in need of those to those churches. So it was a single city, multi-church, multi-location invitation. When we first came in, our data showed, we keep talking about data, because we've literally invested tens of millions of dollars of our donors' generosity to make sure that now that we understand what's happening, but what is actually working. And our first survey in this county was 300 people, only 300, had gone through these 4 hours of skill-based marriage work. That's the starting point. That's like when you weigh yourself before a new diet program. What's there now, right? 300 people. By the time we were completed, we moved 58,912 people through skill-based marriage work at these church partners that were engaged with us. We also launched a $10 million marketing tool that allowed us to saturate the market to find those high-risk couples in most need of that skill-based work. So you see what we're doing? We're offering it, and then we're getting the right people there in order to experience that. The net of that was Jacksonville saw a 24% decline in divorce over the 3 years that we were engaged. Far more than we expected. In fact, our own supporters and donors were skeptical of it and hired externally someone to audit it, and found that there was nothing else significantly going on in the county, in Duval County, that could have accounted for that kind of drop. So our origin began with the connection between the impact of 8 or more hours of skill-based marriage work combined with the capacity to get the right people there who actually need it. And if that could be at the parish level, imagine the capacity to be able to bring the people there and to serve them in such a way that it meets their felt needs and their skill-based needs. The upside for the churches that participated, turns out the couples did not forget. They saw on average a 23% increase in attendance, on Sunday attendance, of those who followed the recipe for the 3 years of Communio, helped these couples then connected to the churches that helped them, and hence the 24% increase. Actual giving. So they were not only there, but they were actually more engaged. Our parish partners averaged a 28% increase. I show these numbers as sort of a second order, third order, all the other effects that happen. We're not even getting to the things that we talk about in terms of engagement, schools. Think about it. What happens when the families and the marriages are healthy? All the things that we can't touch with the programs now benefit from that. Very high level. I actually have some materials here. I'm going to be inviting you to get more detail in this, but what do we do? What is the Communio Foundation model that does this? We have what we call 2 strategic frameworks. The first on the left is what we do. The blue, this ministry engagement ladder, is how we do it. What we do is, first of all, expand what we mean by marriage, hence the conversation beforehand and the questions that I offered. What is marriage now, present? Most of us think, because of our strength in marriage preparation, that a strong marriage parish is one that has a well-attended and a good marriage preparation program. We want to help you expand that vision to recognize what we eventually talked about at the very beginning, that in order to speak about marriage, we have to speak about the preparation for marriage, but we also have to speak about where these couples come from, remotely, proximately, and immediately. And then once they're here as part of our parish, that they're part of community, that they're part of a journeying, that their marriage is personal, but it's not private. Right? There's a reason why witnesses are essential for the marriage to be valid. And it's not just that validity in the sacrament, it is actually in order to live the truth of marriage. We need a public dimension that's essential to it. Right? So, marriage preparation that builds on the single life, helping our singles to be marriageable, think of the virtues and human formation, and the skills to find marriageable partners. You guys brought that in the very beginning. Those are essential. And again, just imagine if that was part of the normative offering at your parish. This was just a culture. This is the zeitgeist. This is the spirit. This is how we church together. That it's not some separate ministry, but it's how we welcome people. It's how we grow in holiness together. But not even stopping the marriage preparation. Marriage is in need, inevitably. Anyone who's married more than 10 minutes realizes they need help. Sometimes that help is deeper than just a counseling or a mentor. Sometimes that is based fundamentally on friendship. So broadening our vision to recognize our singles, marriage preparation, how we help marriages in real need, and finally, marriage enrichment. That we not just offer programs or retreats, that's a great start, but we start doing things isolated with no strategic connection, you're going to get isolated points of success. What we have found in our investment and in our trials and in our data is that when you put things in a particular order and a particular availability, you actually allow each of the programs to do what they're designed to do. Without that strategy and connection, programs end up getting wider, but not deeper. They try to find the couples, or they try to do other things outside of the core of what they do. What we offer is a strategic framework with data at the parish level to build a holistic view of marriage that we call a data-informed, full-circle relationship mission. So how do we do it? We have a 4-step process that's not, in its essence, unique to Communio. There are groups like Focus, where Jared's from. There are some other groups that recognize that if you want people to get into that skill-based marriage work or intense engagement, you can't just invite them to it. Someone mentioned retreat before. We're doing these for 30 years. You got the best retreat program in the world. There's some really good marriage retreat programs. The bigger problem is, how do you get people to show up? You want a father to do 5 announcements instead of 3. You want to get into Flock Note with its own page or with the old, we tried all these channels, and even when we do it very, very well, I'm not being overly cynical, challenge me if I'm wrong, the same people come. God bless us who come. But it's the same people, yes?
Yes.
And we're sitting there thinking, we have got this program, we have got this speaker, we have got this couple, we've got the great, and it's the same people. And we think, well, the Lord brings who the Lord wants to bring, and that's true, but ora et labora, right? Prayer and work. So we're bringing what the world has in terms of technology, the ability to invite, language, marketing channels. We bring to the parish a level of marketing that will never be available at the church level on its own. Because we have invested in it, we have built it, and now we are able to offer that at that level. So the invitation matters, and what you invite them to. What we call an outreach event is the kind of event that anybody would go to because it's fun, or because it answers a question that they're actually asking. Think of a building or an organization or even another religion that you would never walk into their door for. No matter what, it's like you hear something that you're doing, oh, that might be fun. That's an outreach event. So when you draw a circular radius around your parish, and we can help you to identify not only the families that are in need, we can help you identify the people that are most likely to come and to contact them and invite them. You're inviting them to something that would come around you guys and they actually like you. They're having fun, they're meeting you. It's an Oktoberfest, it's a parish picnic, it's a, Easter egg hunt. It's something that's 90% fun, and we help you use 10% of something relational where they go, collecting their information. So we move them to the next level ladder, ongoing engagement. This is the evening of love languages, temperaments, conflict resolution. It's a speaker, it's a short invite, and now you're directly inviting them, having already had an encounter with you, to something that is an answer to a question they're asking. Now they're even deeper engaged. They might even know you by name or by face. Those are the people then that are now primed and ready for what we call the growth retreat. Those are the ones that will come for the first time to the retreat, because they have been with you several times. This is, again, not unique to Communio, except how we do it in each one of these steps is particularly unique. It's human. It's what you do. It's how you show up at things. Because you're supposed to be there, you're going to get something out of it, or you like the people that are going to be there. You're going to bake that into the culture as we move. And we help at the parish level to build what we call an in-reach and an outreach strategy. We have work to do in our parishes, amen? And our data will show that 1 in 5, plus or minus, 1 in 5 couples in the pew right now self-report struggling in marriage. So before we talk about bringing all of these new people back to the parish, we need to get our house in order. We need to strengthen the marriages, our marriages, your marriages. We need to do the real work, not the gloss work. So the in-reach goals will help the parish to first of all recognize through data, who are those couples? How many couples are in need and self-reporting in need that is usually largely not visible to pastor. It's not visible to clergy. It's not visible to leaders in departments because people are very quiet about it, which is why we get these, I call them suddenly announced divorces, the SADs. Right? People are like, we're separate. What? I didn't know you guys were having a problem. I've got a booklet of people. And then you as clergy start to feel like a shame, like, I should know. How did I not see that? Now the data will help you analyze to see the growth and the depth of the problem that the parish level that you have. We come in and help you to plan, to build a breadth and a depth goal. What is it that you want to do? What is a 10 for you? And how do we help you work toward that over a 3-year engagement? So now what you do to get to that 10 is native to your parish. We're not perpetual consultants, we don't want to. But we make it natural, we make it consistent with the life and the culture, but we bring it to that level where it's actually serving the development. We help you to build that. And we're there to implement. You don't just download things from our website. We actually have staff members assigned to your parish, assigned to a team of your own local people that helps you to implement things that you plan and to build to success. And then we review. Because we need to know what works and what doesn't work, particularly for your parish. We have far more available to choose from that is actually necessary or will work particularly in your parish. You need to do this wash, rinse, repeat. Analyze the data, make a plan, implement that plan, review it next time, take what works and move through it. In this 3-year engagement, by that 3-year engagement, you will have a level of relational health and of capacity built on a vision and a community that you simply cannot get on your own. This is not a program. A program, you run it, and it has a health half-life, and then it goes away. We're talking about making into your parish a natural ability to change the culture. In terms of what that looks like, think of your annual calendar at the parish. What is it that you do? What is it that you're proud of? What are the things that are really important to you as a community? And we help you to look at those things and to strategize how they can become part of this building of relational health. Sometimes it's adding a new event. Many times it's about tweaking an event, infusing some relational piece. But most importantly, it's about sequencing it so that you can build up through that ministry engagement ladder across your schedule. Now, one big change here related to what I said earlier is important to note. For years, we began what we call that outreach event. That big event that draws new people in. We average 36% new people coming to campuses using our marketing. That's a lot of people. And what we found was that many parishes are just not prepared to receive new people for the reasons that I said earlier. So one thing that we have learned just in the last couple of years is to move that growth journey early, to have a retreat, to have something intensive for the couples in the parish very early. Get that early win. Get that engagement with that couple, with couples, so that when the strength is internal and building, you now have people to receive the new people that come in with the big growth outreach. Does that make sense? You've got to be able to receive them and receive them well. But baked into the parish calendar is the ability to invite up that engagement ladder, and it becomes part of the life of the parish. It's not meant to be additional work as much as it's meant to be the strategy and organizing so that what we call front porch ministry, it's not one thing among many. This is how we church together. We see people, we acknowledge people, we invite people, we give them that sense of knowing they're supposed to be there, that they belong with us, and ultimately, that they belong here to replace us with choice. That's something that we have to be intentional about. Finally, we have this tool that I mentioned that helps us to find the people that ought to be there. This is a game changer in and of itself. We've had people that wanted just to approach the Community Foundation just for this marketing piece. We're about marriage, so we want this deployed in a way that's actually going to serve our mission as a nonprofit. But the insights that we provide is just an example from the Archdiocese of Kansas City with our Bishop Bauman. We're able to look at the specific communities, in this case, a radius around your parish, and to find the high-risk couples, the ones who are in most need. They may not even know it. Our predictive analytics actually models public available data to those who have divorced, so that we can see patterns of behavior and know who, in particular, would be in need of marriage work instead of everyone that's there. Children, with young children under 10, those likely to be pregnant, those newly married. So however you're approaching them, whether it's through social media, branded by your parish, email, branded from your parish, block walking. There's a reason why even current 2025 campaigns still block walk. So if you're up for that, that's another option. Not necessary, but it's an option. Highly powerful. Direct mail, again, branded from you, or even direct text. Not broad texting, but personal texting from a particular contact. Whatever channels that you use, they're now infused with your parish branding, with the language that invites to wherever we're moving in a particular part of the ladder. So what's the net? The churches that are partnered with Communio, this is a recently updated slide here, for 12 to 24 months following our recipe, see an average increase in church attendance of 22%. I put a little asterisk next to that because that may be month 23 closer if we start doing the internal building first. But once you engage in inviting people to the church, people are connected. There's a sticky reality to the fact that you help them in their marriage. This was the place where I saw that included in my marriage. And what are they saying? We take lots of data, and the personal ratings that people have about the relationship and the risk for divorce at the beginning, and we take it at the end. 70% of those who self-report being at high risk for divorce report being very satisfied or better with their marriage after the completion of that growth journey course. There's lots of good programming out there, whether it's marriage enrichment, marriage preparation, marriage, even for singles work. But when you put these together and you're able to choose the ones with a certain effect that all the same effectiveness, then you're able to build for your particular parish a way of building healthy relationships that's part of the culture. What about our singles? There's always this right understanding that we need to address and help our singles. Singles who completed our growth journey were 31% more likely to agree with this statement. I have the knowledge and skills to build a healthy relationship. That's that marriageability, but also the ability to find a marriageable partner. All helpful in that sense. We provide data in terms of snapshot to where he was, just one example, whether it's for married people, maybe it's for the Diocese of Lansing, or we do it for individual parishes, for regions, for singles, again, for the total population, not just the Catholic population. We say we're not data-driven, but we are data-informed because we need to know what actually is fulfilling the mission of our institution. Because even as Sister Lucia is clearly right in the collapse and fall of marriage and the demonic hand in this, we still have a church are part of this age. And we have a particular calling, particular gifting to address this. And the church has done this before. This is not the first sexual revolution the church has gotten in and will successfully change. We have a power, we have a capacity, and now we want to bring all of these things together for that. So just to close, last time I spoke with you in January, we were talking about the California Catholic bishops, 12 bishops who have been meeting over the last year, working on many things, but a Radiate Love initiative and partnership with Communio about how to make that initiative more than just a 1 or 2 year. How does it really have legs and not just be one of the things you do, documents on the shelf, and then we move on to the next shiny object, right? And their hope and our certainty is that Communio at parishes is the long play. This is how we help us as church to be that local presence, to help not only those who are attending, not only those who are there to build healthier marriages, to help our children to want to marry, and then help them be able to marry, not just for us, but actually to be that relational hub for the entire region around that church. So our hope today, the update basically, is that the bishops we're very close to a formal agreement for the entire state of California, which would mean that engaging Communio is a substantially lower cost. I'll get to the details of anybody who's ready to talk about that, but it is a substantial, by the grace of our donors and our ability to serve a particular region. We are now available for you at the parish level. What we would do is I would ask you to reach out to me or to Deacon Tom about your interest. Right now, we're gathering the deacons, wives, parishes that are interested in hearing more about how this might look at your parish. I have some information here, about a dozen or so packets are there with more information if you want to share that with the pastor or whoever is in marriage. But we really right now just need to know, how does this land in your heart? Because I truly believe that there's a particular place for you all in this renovation, in this restoration. It's not new work, it's not even ending what you've been doing. It's doing it smarter, it's doing more strategic, and it's leading on $30-40 million of investment that we've had to tell you what works and what doesn't work. And then make that custom and native to your parish. This is why we're excited. Can you tell? Right? This is why it's worth it. And in that sense, I thank you again for your attention, I thank you for your passion, I thank you for your vocation. Thank you for the call that God's given you, and I'm really giving you a chance to work together now in the future to help basically save Western civilization. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I invited David back because of the follow-up conversations that took place after the January presentation. There's an observed need. The word crisis was used in January. We all agreed. And we all agreed it was a time for renewal of marriage. I love how you tied into the renewal of the diaconate after Vatican II. So we have a unique opportunity here. What I love about the model is that it's about evangelization through families. It's about evangelization at the parish level. We do so many beautiful things at a diocesan level, but then what happens afterwards at the parish? They've got a platform, an operating system, and as a former business person, I see it. I see the marketing and the power, the technology behind it that parishes don't have. And we can do it. I did speak with Bishop Pryor via email. There's a commitment being made, a pledge being made to support this with the California Conference. And what we need now is parish uptake. You're not the pastors, but you know the pastors, right? And you can talk to the pastors about this and begin to look at the possibilities. And if you're willing, that's going to make a big difference to be a part of it, because we need people to really make this work, a commitment. I think the money will not be an issue. It's going to be there. I have a feeling. So just think about this, pray about it, see how you can get involved. We're going to have lunch in a minute. The model was to take a lunch break and have some informal discussion with David and Jared, who flew in. Thank you guys for flying in, all of you, for this. We really appreciate it very much. And God bless you all. We're gonna have lunch, but maybe we can pray. Is Bishop Van here? Oh, he popped in and he popped out. He came to see us, and I'm sure your answers is blessed.